when they moved us back from the breakout rooms, they said, we will put you in your sessions, in your, you know, small sessions. So when I clicked to go back and there were 46 people, I thought, holy smoke, people are interested in this topic. But no.
They are. They really are. It's just, there's a lot going on, so we have to share.
Hi, Muat.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, Karen's waiting. All right. Karen should be coming in.
My husband was laughing because I'm dressed in like all clothes today, like real clothes. No pajamas, no sweatpants, like all real clothes. It's a big day.
No one can see what you're wearing.
I know, but I feel different.
Oh, okay.
I feel official. Or at least a little official.
Where's Judy Lynn? Is Judy Lynn in? I don't know.
Are all the sessions being recorded?
Yes.
We should tell people. Maybe Gina did and I missed it.
Oh yeah, I didn't hear that.
Yes, absolutely.
Zooming 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Let's see. How many people are in?
12.
We're missing Judy Lynn, which is not good,
No.
but I think you should begin.
Okay. Okay, so welcome. Thank you for being here today. As we just mentioned, this session's being recorded, so just so you know. So we thought we would give you just a quick overview of where we are at this point, and having looked at the data, some of the draft recommendations that our committee has come up with. Okay, there we go. It's pushing the wrong button. So things that we've learned from the data so far. So we see the items that went up in terms of our overall mean scores were nature of work research, nature of work teaching, scores on mentoring, and then scores on promotion to full. So the process items, clarity items, reasonable expectations, and department support. So those were areas that where we saw improvement from 2015 to 2019. And the best aspects that our faculty rated in about John Jay in 2019 were our geographic location, the quality of colleagues, as you can all see here, and the quality of undergraduate students. More things that we learned, we of course had, unfortunately, some things went down. So we had tenure expectations and clarity went down from 2015 in terms of subgroup differences. We continued to see subgroup differences, and we also saw a decrease for white faculty and female faculty. And in terms of governance, issues, ratings that went down were understanding of the issue at hand, adaptability, and productivity. And then the worst aspects of in 2019 were the teaching load, the cost of living, so that's the flip side of being our geographic location, I guess, compensation, and then too much service / too many service assignments. Okay. Then there were a number of questions that are specific to either the CUNY survey or John Jay's questions. So one of the items was, I have access to resources at my college to support my research, scholarship, and or creative work. Sorry, excuse me. And we see sort of a bimodal distribution where almost like 43% agree, but 36% disagree overall, and we see that trend particularly among associate professors. Much smaller number are neutral. Resource alignment and fair distribution, and we see this trend is stronger with underrepresented minority faculty. So resources align with the college's priorities and goals. So at the time of this survey, a little over 50% of faculty disagreed with that statement. And my department or program gets a fair share of resources. About 55% disagree with that statement. To what extent, and this one was a John Jay specific question that we wrote, to what extent is there a culture at the institution that tolerates sexual or other faculty or staff misconduct? Again, something of a bimodal distribution where overall, just about 50% say not at all, but we have a significant minority, about 25% who say to a moderate or great extent that is true. And we see, in particular for women, 35% saying to a moderate or great extent that is true. Oops, sorry, went too fast. And then the items on leadership opportunities and effectiveness. So in terms of the item, I have leadership opportunities, about 60% agreed with that statement and about 20% disagreed. So it seems like there's a reasonable amount of opportunity available, but what the item of college promotes or incentivizes effective faculty leadership, about 45% disagree. So there's some discord there in terms of effectiveness versus opportunities for leadership. As I mentioned, one of the items that went down was the tenure clarity issue. So we thought we'd give you just a little bit of the clarifying data that we've given that has been shown somewhat in other places, just to start us off, faculty personnel process in particular. So over a 10-year span, in terms of success rates in the faculty personnel process, the blue bars for each year are the initial positive result of a personnel action or vote, like a reappointment or tenure promotion. And then the orange are the additional positives on appeal. And you can see between 2009 and 2019, those numbers are above, consistently 90% or higher at the initial level, and above 95% with the appeals. So while we have a lot of anxiety and concern and support and want to really be providing as much support as we can and information to faculty around the personnel process, we generally are quite successful as a faculty in the context of that process. So it's just helpful to have that as a baseline. In terms of promotion from associate to full professor, on average, it has taken about 7.2 years before being promoted to full over the past, let's say, last decade. And Allison, you can correct me if about the last decade. For men, the average time in their associate rank was 7.7 years, and for women, it was 6.6 years. And we do see a difference slightly in terms of those who were hired before a lot of the pre-tenure supports and those hired after. So folks hired pre-2003, the average is about 10.2 years versus 6.7 for faculty hired after those supports were in place. And then 67% of those who are promoted to full professor do so in 7 years or less. So that's just giving a little bit of a framework for the timing that folks are using or in which they are applying for full professor from associate. Okay, so what now? Having looked at this data, and we sort of gave you some of the highlights that informed some of the recommendations that we drafted, and reading the comments and looking at all of the items, and also considering the limited nature, you know, we don't want to recommend 800 things and be able to accomplish 2. We came up with 6 major goals for which we have specific action recommendations. So the major goals are rebalance, recognize, and reward faculty service. So there's a focus on service. And another is to improve resource management. And we saw that in terms of the concordance between the goals of the college and the resources and department access to resources. 3 and 4 are supporting faculty success. So 3 is faculty success in teaching, and 4 is supporting success in research. 5 is building a more inclusive community, and we see that in terms of some of the disparities that we see, but for underrepresented minority faculty. And then 6, build a culture of transparency and accountability. We saw a hint of that in the leadership question. Okay, so what we're going to do is we will go into breakout rooms now to discuss these recommendations, and in particular the action items that we've drafted to try to attack these different goals and to reach them. And so we're pairing them 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and we're going to randomly assign folks to the groups. And we have the pairs of our COACHE working group folks to talk through the recommendations. And the guiding questions that we're going to be sort of talking about or structuring our conversations are: what do you like about our objectives and suggested activities? What's missing? And what needs to be tweaked or adjusted? So I will stop there. And we each have our slides so that we can use to run these sessions. And I believe Allison will now.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm now just going to send you to rooms to talk about 2 of the goals led by 2 members of the COACHE group. So have fun, and we'll see you back here in 25 minutes. 25 minutes for the breakout rooms. Goodbye. Jaleesa, I didn't assign you to a room.
That's fine, that's fine.
So you can chill for 25 minutes and deal with all these people who are like, I don't know how to get in.
Yeah.
Have we figured out what happened there? Because I actually had that same issue, which is like I click on the link and the link takes you to the
Hello.
Listen, are we cutting and pasting comments to Amy so she can summarize? Or how do you want it?
I've forgotten what we said we were going to do. This is Amy's part. I don't know. We'll let Amy take that on. Hi, Amy.
What am I taking on?
Henry wants to know if he's cutting and pasting comments for you or if you're just writing them all up.
So far, I've been just making notes on a very small pad. But if Henry wants to take notes, that would be brilliant.
So how about we report out for each section, and
yeah, and maybe
I'll make notes as well.
In the chat. You want to put them in the chat where we can save them? Thank you. All right, so are we all back? I'm going to go to gallery view. Welcome back, everybody. So I am going to, I don't think everybody's back.
They should.
Oh, maybe they are. Maybe they are. So welcome back, everybody. I hope you had some meaningful conversation in your small groups. So why don't we go from goals 1 to 6 and just hear briefly what the goal was that you talked about, and what opportunities or what did we miss, and what could we be doing better? I know in our group we only got through one of our goals because there were so many interesting thoughts about them. So who did goal 1?
Henry and I
Great.
did it, or we kind of facilitate the session. Henry, do you want to say, or do you want me to just recap, or?
If you could, since you were the note taker, go ahead and report out.
Sure. So with goal 1, I think people were enthusiastic about the idea of having service kind of better rewarded, but felt that there were, kind of basically the challenge was getting, the FPC and other kind of campus bodies to actually, have enough buy-in in order to, in order to make it kind of worthwhile, right? That it's one thing to say that service is valued, but really, what does it take to have service valued, especially in the tenure and promotion? One idea that was mentioned in connection to, let me see, 1.1b, the idea of rewarding service, that perhaps the most effective award would be something along the lines of course releases, or a course release, that this might be a way to address one of the kind of major concerns about doing too much service, is it takes away from one's research portfolio, and actually having a course release, again, allows someone to do service and at the same time keep the research going. Yeah, so the importance of incentivizing service. I think that's there.
And the
Anybody else
small
from the group?
departments, what is excessive, what's the definition of excessive service and
Oh,
the
yes,
problem of small departments?
right. So the idea of what does exceptional service mean, if this is something that's going to be incentivized or rewarded, and how might this look differently in big versus small departments, especially in smaller departments where all faculty members are already doing quite a bit of service.
Somebody needs to mute.
If everyone can mute,
Oh, Allison, can you mute everyone? And then we'll
Yeah.
recognize them? Thank you.
I did mute the problem.
Thank you.
Okay. And then I guess one other thing to mention here in the idea of making sure that service was kind of let's see this right. So the idea that service was that there was a broad distribution of service, right? That everyone in the department was taking on service roles, to make sure that the ability of departments to decide who would be best to be chair, who would be best to serve in a particular position, wasn't being usurped. I think that covers the main points for goal number 1.
Okay, thank you. Shall we move to the next one? Number 2?
That was improving resource management, Matt and Henry.
Notes here. All right. So we only had time to talk about this one for a little bit. Again, I think the one of the major comments was that we want to be more more precise with the language about especially what are the problems with resource management right now. Not simply a lack of transparency, but say with 5.1b, right? If we're talking about aligning hiring to the college's goals, actually spelling out if we mean hiring more full-time faculty, then actually spelling this out. With goal 5.2, there was some discussion about the phrase transparent consultation and what does this mean? Because this can be taken as just give people an opportunity to share their views or share their voices, and then the people in charge decides what to do just on their own. So transparent consultation is a good start, but really what there is that there's a need for shared leadership in decision making, one that cuts across kind of administrative hierarchies.
Anything else on that goal?
I think that covers the high points here.
Great. Anybody want to comment or add something? All right. Allison, who's our next group?
You?
Okay. So Judy Lynn and I talked about diversity goal. Would it help if we shared the slides while we talk about this so people know what 4.2 is, or do we not feel like we need to see that?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let me, I closed that PowerPoint down for myself, so let me pull it back up and then I can do it. Unless you can share the screen, so if you've got it, go ahead.
Where's the PowerPoint? I could find, here it is. Got it. Okay. So I'm going to actually go back. So yeah, goal 4 was build a more inclusive community. So this kind of, we talked about the hiring and retention of BIPOC faculty. We talked about the lower representation of BIPOC faculty in the full professor category. And we talked about what it would take to, what would community actually look like. So recruit at least a certain percentage of BIPOC faculty. We talked about providing resources to recruit underrepresented faculty, that there have been a lack of available resources. And we didn't actually get to talk about the pathways for doctoral students, but we can certainly think more about that as we move forward. Hear what other folks have to say about that. So retention of BIPOC faculty. So one of the things, I'm sorry, if we go back, was targeted hiring in departments that are less well represented by BIPOC faculty, that not just across the campus, but in specific departments where there is much less representation. So then in terms of retention, we talked about, somebody had a great idea about finding out if we do exit interviews and what do they tell us, having some kind of early warning system for faculty who are not happy and would consider leaving. So just generally a lot more information, and asking people, which I said we've done in the past in some focus groups, what would make, asking people directly, what would make you feel more included. Came out of that one. Third was re-examine our curriculum, and there wasn't much discussion here. There seemed to be pretty universal agreement that we needed to revisit the curriculum to make sure that it was more inclusive and reflective of our student body. We talked about, in terms of building community, having more opportunities, small group opportunities for collaboration, grants for people to work with the TLC to incentivize that, smaller activities where you could interact with or collaborate with small groups as opposed to large, holiday parties and things, to build community, that smaller group activities would be more effective. So increased diversity in full professor ranks. So this was about creating more intentional mentoring opportunities, I'm just looking forward to formalize the pathways for leadership and promotion, and identify faculty who are BIPOC and provide intentional and strategic cultivation. And just reading that, I'm thinking, yeah, we got to find the BIPOC faculty who have been promoted to full and are interested in and available. We don't want to keep increasing their service requirements in mentoring folks on the path on the way up. And this was, I'm sorry, where we really talked about creating small group opportunities both in short-term things. Somebody talked about how much the lunches that Allison did were helpful. Breakout rooms like this are helpful. So just in terms of creating small groups, both in one-offs and across time, to create collaborations in the TLC, in teaching, as well as in research, to provide opportunities for faculty to feel connected to one another. Yeah, that's, I think, yeah, we didn't get to talking about making it more inclusive. I think the feeling is, if we need to take care of ourselves before we start reaching out to other, making us more accessible to other communities. That's my personal.
Amy, we should move to the next goal. We have 5 minutes left.
Didn't get to even discuss the
We
last
didn't get to discuss it, so go to the next group. Just tell me what number it is so I can put it up.
So that's Angela and Mua.
Which girl?
I don't know.
3?
Yep. Wes, do you want to speak, or would you like me to?
Sure, go ahead.
So in terms of goal 3, this was support for faculty research. We mostly talked, about, first of all, the need for, well, I think that was in 2, so we'll go to 3. The need for some nuance in our understanding of research productivity. So sort of attention to the question of quantity versus quality. Amy, can you go forward maybe?
What number?
One more, 3.2. So this in particular, the idea of increasing research productivity. So some of this, the suggested activities are around supports for faculty to ensure that there's enough support to encourage and allow research productivity, but we want to be mindful of the quantity versus quality issue for faculty and sort of be thoughtful about that in the recommendation. But we also wanted to, are suggesting for this objective, increasing funding for faculty student research and visibility of the OSRC, PRISM, DLEAP, which is in psychology. So providing some of those financial and other supports for faculty to produce this research. But that was part of our discussion, was the quantity versus quality issue. Objective 3.3, we got a thumbs up on 3.3, some support for that. So recognizing the value of different kinds of research for faculty in different domains. So that was something to be aware of. And then we also talked about, we were in goal 2. So goal 2 is supporting faculty success in teaching. And so one of the issues that came up, so one thing we noted was that 2.1 is about, we want to increase faculty awareness of what we do have in terms of resources, personal and family resources, but also the limitations of those, which are contractual and CUNY related. And we just made a point of saying that part of the reason we would include these sorts of things is that change happened last time because across CUNY, faculty were unhappy with the teaching load. It was like glaringly obvious that that was a big important area for attention. So, you know, highlighting some of these issues may have an impact for faculty in general. So housing, childcare, and elder care, spousal hiring are things that if enough campuses are pushing on them, that they may lead to some benefits contractually. And then 2.2 are a lot of supports for teaching effectiveness. So we've seen some coming out of DOES right now in the TLC, but making sure, and we talked a little bit about some of the technology needs that faculty still have. And so making sure we're getting those needs met, but making sure faculty are aware of the options for when technology needs arise, but also things like adopting a culture of check-in so that chairs are scheduling at least one check-in with each member of their full-time faculty each semester. So creating, again, a little bit more accountability, but also a little bit more access and awareness of faculty needs to support better, more effective teaching. across the board. So that's kind of what we talked about.
Okay.
So you all
We sent
received,
everybody, right?
yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
I just wanted to highlight, we also, because we emailed you these slides, please do feel free when you have time to sort of digest them even a little more. Send us feedback. Say this, you know, again, based on those questions, you're missing this, or, you know, this needs to be tweaked, or I like this, you know, whatever feedback you'd like, we welcome it. So please share.
You mail out the goals
We did.
to people? Okay.
This is the PowerPoint slideshow we sent out.
I just wonder if, as people are just trying to absorb a lot of information that's taken us a long time to put together, what's glaringly absent in terms of faculty? Oh, Susan, you got online. I'm so excited to see you. In terms of what's glaringly absent from what we're thinking about in terms of faculty satisfaction. Is there anything strike you as, this is so obvious, why didn't somebody talk about it?
This is Karen. How about a sense of creating a stronger sense of community? Of course, this is a different time with being online, and we're creating a sense of community this way, but did that come up in the COACHE survey? Yes.
It was in one of the goals that Judy Lynn and I were talking about. I can share that screen if people are interested.
Sure.
It definitely came up, that and communication. And so those
Yes.
themes are a little bit infused in some of the, more than one objective, I would say.
Yeah, I hear faculty say how isolated they feel, you know,
Yeah.
before the lockdown.
And that comes through in the survey.
You hear that from newer faculty who haven't had a chance to really reach out to other people across the campus, but you also hear it from people like Karen and I who've been around forever, who saw a very small, close-knit community grow and blossom as the school grew, and that sense of community that we were used to changed dramatically. So it's something that we need to sort of figure out a way to get back to.
Does anyone have any specific thoughts about what you think would create a greater sense of community?
Yeah, this is Jessica. I've been trying, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been trying to think about what to say on this one. I was thinking about that learning communities thing. I think maybe TLC has even talked about it and tried to do some specific learning communities, but I was wondering if having all faculty in some kind of learning community, I mean, the problem is it's more service, right? We're asking them to be on another committee to do another thing, and you know, that's sort of the balance, right? People already feel overwhelmed with all the work, especially it's a lot of work to teach well, you know, to teach well and then to keep up with your research. But it seems like maybe having, you know, learning communities might be a way, and I think that's the right term I'm using.
Do you mean learning communities in terms
of people
of teaching, or in terms of just faculty working together?
Either or. I was thinking of it some kind of learning community. So it could be for teaching, so 2 or 3 or 4 people teaching the same 4 or 5 courses working together, or a cluster of people who are doing similar research. I think it could be organized in different ways so that maybe you would hit everybody. So like not everyone would be in a scholarship cohort, but they might be in a teaching cohort or something. I'm not sure, but I was thinking that notion that you have 3 or 4 people who are working closely together on something might be a way, especially for the newer faculty, but I think even for some of the ones who've been around, it would be a way to feel a better, more connection to something, have more opportunity to work closely with ideas. I think it may be in here somewhere about research and grant writing, but I was thinking just in general to think about how to make sure sort of every faculty member was in some kind of learning community without it being too onerous, but actually being helpful.
Are you thinking of interdepartmental, so that you're connecting with people outside your own department?
Yes.
We really should
Again,
wrap up.
it doesn't
Although I see
have to
Kate
be.
Zer has a question or a comment. So Amy,
Yes,
it's still your
sorry.
show, but Kate Zer, and then we should probably wrap up.
Yeah, so I was just going to suggest that it seems from what Judy Lynn said that with the size comes this feeling of disconnectedness. So maybe that we could institute some ways of simulate.
Well,
We don't have. I froze. Oh.
We
Yeah,
can hear
you're
you
back.
now. Do you hear me now? So basically, what I was going to say is that maybe simply just some departments could be joined together as informal schools in their meetings, in their communications, to create that sense of connectedness, which would not necessarily mean work and meetings and compensation, but just sharing a space where people meet and communicate. Which I think it happens when you have schools within a larger university, but we don't have that. And we could do this communication and kind of like community side of schools without the formal structure.
It's a really interesting idea.
Angela, shall I hand it back to you?
Sure. So again, I would just say thank you for these wonderful ideas. I'm taking, as I think you know, I'm taking on the Associate to the Provost for Faculty role, and I'm going to totally steal your ideas. But I am, these ideas about community are really salient to me, and trying to think about, like, this coach group had some roundtables for female faculty, female identifying faculty, to have discussions, and I like that idea, and I'm interested in pursuing alternative ways of having drop-in sessions where folks can come and talk to one another on different topics. So we are sort of working on some of these kinds of ideas, because I do think that community issue is important. But that said, thank you all for participating in this community discussion. As I said, please feel free. Allison emailed out the PowerPoint. We are very eager to get feedback on the recommendations that we eventually make. They're going to be due at the end of the fall semester. And we want actionable things that we can demonstrate progress and really improve things for our faculty, for the sake of improving things for our faculty, not just because we want our numbers to go up. We want our work lives to be more fulfilling, and that's the goal. So please share any ideas or any feedback on what you saw. Share it with others, because it's not a state secret. We want as much feedback as we can possibly get, and we'll continue to find ways to do that. So thank you for your time and attention, and enjoy the rest of Faculty Development Day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for your hard work.